So I'm speaking with one of my favorite composers, Mr. Heitor Pereira, who just composed the new drama If I Stay, starring the talented Chloe Grace Moretz. Beyond that, Heitor is behind the mega-hit Despicable Me franchise and is currently working on the next film, titled The Minions, set for release next year. Heitor's diverse scoring background includes films like Running the Sahara, Beverly Hills Chihuahua, Ask the Dust, and It's Complicated. Heitor, thanks so much for chatting today. It's so great to talk again.
Pleasure all mine, kind of good to be talking to you and everybody there.
So I guess let's jump right into If I Stay, which is your newest score. The film just came out. Even though you've scored, plenty of dramas in your career, I feel like a movie like this could pose, a pretty big challenge for a composer. You're dealing with a movie that's filled with tons of emotion already. Simply just from the plot, from the acting,
Yes.
just the substance of the film. So I feel it'd be very easy to do kind of too much, with the music. So how did you approach this film, and what did you want your music to accomplish?
Um, well, I think the way you put it, it's exactly it. And I felt that if I was to put in words the music, it's almost like, because as you said, there is so much suffering and deep feelings, deep emotions. I feel that the music, it's almost like a friend that holds your hand. The score is, holds the hand of the audience and says, "Look, it's okay. It's okay to cry. It's okay to laugh, and do it when you want and as you want." And so I felt that many times the music would play that position instead of emphasizing the pain. I would just be underline of maybe a little to help the silence too.
Right.
So it would make the moment a little easier to take. But as I said, almost as a friend is whispering at your ear, it's all good. Instead of like, oh, now she's dying, then we make everything very impactful and then instead of supporting the acting, we add to it.
Mm-hmm.
And as you said, in your introduction, Chloe did it so beautifully, and everybody in the cast really, for that matter. So I think the music it really played more of a supporting, role.
Right. And did you really kind of build it around her character, or was it kind of built around the idea of the film, the plot, or was it more of a character-based score or a plot-based score? Kind of where did the music, I guess, come from?
I think it evolved. It's interesting, because the movie they kept working on it because there's the whole thing about goes to the future, goes back to the past, and then that in itself can become very confusing, and they kept just trying to edit in a way that there wouldn't be any doubts. So I felt that the hospital scenes needed one tone, one color. So that was specifically composed like for that particular time. Every time in the beginning of the movie, she came back to the hospital, then there was a certain tone, of urgency, and so that we did. Then there was a theme, more or less of a love theme, because there are so many songs also, right? That
Right, yeah.
I felt, let the songs do what they do, and instead of fighting with it, so there was a love thing, but not like a love thing that it becomes like a symphony by the end of it. It didn't need to be that. But there is somehow a thing that represents this relationship. Mia's and Adam's relationship, and then here comes all the soothing, let's say. Pretty much like the speeches and acting from her grandfather, Stacy Keach, right? And that I felt when he came in, to me was the piano and all the wisdom of one lonely instrument,
Right.
and that carried all the way to the end of the movie. I felt that instead of growing, and becoming exponentially like emotional, and at every new scene that she appears or her grandfather appears, I felt that we actually had to do the opposite. And I think so. Then the more he was present on the screen, I think the less I needed to do it, and the more Chloe's character comes to a decision that she will let everything go, the more I needed to emphasize that decision or that hardship that she was going through.
Right.
So that's more or less how the scenes were constructed, and inspired from.
Oh wow. And I mean, so this film it has a little bit more weight than say Despicable Me, which is more of a lighter family, comedy, but still has heart. So, like, if you're working on something like If I Stay versus Despicable Me, does that require you as a composer, as a storyteller? Do you have to be in a different state of mind? Do you have to kind of get into it mentally before you can start writing music for it?
Look, this was a very interesting process because we started a long time even before picture, because we needed to choose the classical pieces that she was going to perform on camera,
right.
And also the songs that Adam's band would perform as their careers took off. So me, the RJ, the director, and Linda Cohen, the music supervisor, and a cello teacher. We've had many, maybe like 10 or even more meetings before RJ went, off to shoot the movie.
Mm-hmm. So
we had a clear picture of what kind of musician she was to portray, and Adam as well. It was interesting because almost like in being part of that process, it kind of set a tone for my own music, even though I didn't know what I was going to write.
Oh, wow.
From time to time, I would show RJ, I came up with this melody, what do you think? But I didn't have picture yet. I had the script. I had all the songs that would create the universe of the music of the movie. But quite frankly, we were changing cues until the last day of dub.
Wow.
Because they were altering the movie too.
Right.
And so to me it was more of reacting to everything that they threw at me,
Mm-hmm.
And being true to, like, man, I'm not overplaying the emotion here. That to me was the biggest goal, and so that was more or less like what dictated like how I approached the music, and it was from a long time before I started writing, really.
And I mean, speaking of that, I remember last time you talked, or we talked. You were talking, I think it was either Despicable Me or Smurfs. You were saying that how you were kind of reading the script, and you would record yourself reading the script, because sometimes you kind of come up with melodies as you're reading and you hum them out. Does something like that apply to a film like this, or is that kind of more oriented towards more melodic,
Totally.
Melodic films like a Despicable Me? So did you do that with If I Stay?
Yes, I did, actually, and the music that is under every scene in the hospital is exactly what I sung to my iPhone.
Wow.
I
love that process. I think that's one of the most interesting and original process. I've never heard of anybody do that. I always think that's so but it makes sense, I mean, I think Charlie Chaplin used to do that, because he composed his films, but he wasn't a musician, so he would just hum it to the orchestra and be like, play it. I think that's a very good genesis of where the melody comes from. It's so interesting.
I'm so glad that you mentioned that, because that's why I loved about a movie like If I Stay, because I never, generally, one would say, oh, more songs, less space for my music, and I'm very fortunate to have worked in movies that actually featured also a lot of songs, like Despicable Me, Pharrell is all over it,
right.
Curious George, Jack Johnson's songs are, such a big part of the whole thing, right? And I find that, with time, and because I come from the pop music scenario per se, so from Brazil and then in England with, as you know, like the Simply Red Ears, and then here in America before I ventured into film music, I was so lucky to have played with so many great artists from here and recorded with them. So the power of song, which in truth is the power of melody, and lyrics, to me, it had as much importance as a fully orchestrated idea. So to me, it's always fun to hold hands with the songs, because then you can maybe hold back on something that you most likely would have forced a little bit,
Right,
so
yeah.
if there is a song montage, right after a cue, or even right before, you don't want to have that cue to be like a massive thing, because you take the impact of the song as preparing the person for the song that is coming, or after the song, to let the emotions of that song sit and become what that song conveys, so you don't get in the way of the aftermath of that, the impact of that song for the audience, and I hope it's the same impact to me as a human being, so I try to dance, with that, with the songs, and I love it. I love it, so it's something that I'm very comfortable with,
Yeah.
so.
That's, I always think it would be hard to do that, to kind of dance between songs. I remember I spoke with Elliot Goldenthal, and he works with Michael Mann a lot, and Michael Mann uses, he's his own music supervisor. He plots those songs, throughout the whole film, so the score kind of has to do this gentle dance, and work with, and, the songs, and kind of be part of that soundscape. I always think it's kind of a fascinating way to musically kind of put everything together. But also, just kind of looking at your work, just not looking at any specific film, do you kind of have, because you work on so many different genres, do you have any kind of different approaches for different genres of films? Do you treat an action scene different than a romantic kiss, or do you treat it differently than a fart joke from Despicable Me? Is there, the goal of the score, is the same, but do you kind of tackle it differently in any way?
I think I do actually, and not as a system, but as for example, even these massive orchestral pieces in Despicable Me or the Smurfs or whatever, right? Like they tend to be big. I write the majority of them from the guitar, from a MIDI guitar, which in itself generates a different already like a different DNA for the music, But I do also the same way I sing when I'm reading the script. Many times I'm looking at the scene and I'm singing, or with a guitar, with a piano, but I'm recording my voice and recording the piano, and then I start orchestrating that. So let's say the most instant, response. I think it comes through the voice, not only melodically but rhythmically, So I record that and I put a melody. So then it's a question of transcribing, really. But so that's one process. The other one is just to perform like percussion, no melodies, and just and no click, no previously set up like click. That's one thing that I do a lot. So then I make the sequences follow that free, time, tempo kind of thing, and we write to that click map, per se, that came from me sitting with a I don't know, a tambourine, and just looking at the scene and just coming up with like rhythmic patterns or things like this. So each one of them, I guess, or each one of the scenes really dictates like a different process. And I tell you another thing, many times I write standing up. I come from performing, and I can't, I know that I become another musician when I'm recording, sitting down, so when I write, and I know that I was another musician in the years that the only thing that I did was to perform live.
Right.
So many times when I'm writing a piece of music, I stand up. I just press record, slide the chair away, and strap on the guitar and go for it, and improvise 5, 6 times, the thing. Sometimes the scene passes and I continue because I know that I was improvising specifically for that scene, but that generated, more material that I know that now I close my eyes and I imagine, all these other scenes that the music can have that moment as like the birthplace of it. So, but always standing up, so that's kind of how I feel, man, how I do it.
No, I remember just watching, behind the scenes footage from some of Hans's scores. I watched like Black Hawk Down, and I remember seeing you there, standing and kind of working with the guitar and stuff like that. So it's just, and being in your studio and seeing how your studio is set up, I think it's very interesting. And you have an amazing guitar collection. When I was visiting, I saw that. And so do you have maybe like a favorite guitar in that entire room that maybe it means the most versus sounds the best? Is there one that kind of you love most than any other ones?
I think I have a very clear answer for this one, and I do have. And the guitar that I have, it's the guitar that I like the most nowadays, is a guitar that doesn't have strings. It's the guitar that is just to generate MIDI, so I can orchestrate all this music, so I can write, input all these notes to the sequencer, but the neck of the guitar is made of like these little pads that represent, each one of these pads represents a finger pressed against the neck over the strings, and so now the strings don't exist. So you play, pressing those pads as you would press a key on the keyboard.
Right.
But I asked this person to build and keep adding, like improvements to these models, and it has become like an instrument that I really, really love, and I have many instruments that do just that. Some with strings, some without, but. Yeah, it's a very funny thing, man. I see the movie through the neck of a guitar, but I don't hear a guitar sound.
Yeah, I guess you have to adapt to what, that's where you feel at home, so I guess that makes more sense to you. It's the same output, it's just a different way of, I guess, getting there. So that's...
Yeah, and I studied orchestration based on Berlioz, orchestrational kind of, concepts and stuff. And that guy, he was a guitar player himself. Villa-Lobos, who we grew up listening to because he's a great classical composer from Brazil, wrote a lot from the guitar as well. He was a great guitar player himself and a cello player himself. So there is a certain, setting, a mindset per se, that the instrument, in a way, helps, and I'm very loyal to that. I keep improving my horrible chops on the piano. I think I'm most at home when everything is born, actually from the voice and the guitar. So then I know melodically it's as simple as it can be, and I know how far I can take it, if as complicated as it needs to become, and the guitar as an accompanying thing, is exactly the orchestra supporting whatever soloist one chooses, to be. It's a clarinet, it's a flute, it's a combination, or all the strings playing the melody and the brasses accompany. I think to a certain degree that's why my love for this instrument is, because I kind of almost instantly I can hear all of this is still being a guitar player.
Fascinating. That's so cool. And you are an amazing guitarist, and I love your album you did a few years ago, to Untold Stories. A great
Thank
solo
you.
instrumental album. Is there any plans to maybe do one of those again?
Oh my God, I actually have so much material, and I just need some time to organize myself and just put it out there. I have new songs and I have new orchestral pieces. Well, I have pieces that I want to orchestrate. I want to do a record where all my music that I've written for the orchestra now I can do just with an upright acoustic guitar.
Wow.
And a drummer. So to become like something very intimate, even though what you hear in these movies is normal, is an orchestral.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of to help show people that is still down to, as you said before, it's a simple melody and this is how it was born, kind of thing. So I have like many projects, and when I have a little free time, I go there and record something, leave it over there. But I did write a song with kids for the World Cup, and I have a song for HBO for Saving Tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
It's a series of HBO, and I think Karen O will sing the song that I wrote, from the EAAS, lots of like side projects that keep me interested in loving music more than ever.
Absolutely. I'd love to hear if that all comes together for another album. That'd be amazing, because I loved your Untold Stories album. But looking kind of outside of music as we kind of wrap up here, what do you love to do? Like, any hobbies that allow you to step away from music to kind of refresh yourself creatively? What do you like to do besides anything that's not to do with music?
Be with nature.
Nature?
Yeah, I study like bird migrations. I love birds. Me and my family, we travel the world when I have a little time.
Mm-hmm.
And my son surfs. My daughter surfs as well. I poorly surf, but I surf a little bit. But they go to the beach and they're gonna do the thing. I hire a guide, and this person, takes me like in my life to like the mid of the forest, and it starts telling us, this song is from that bird, that song is that bird, and that bird loves that tree, and that tree likes to be there because the soil has that kind of like minerals. And I love that, man. To me, it's just like, that's what I do, to be with my family and my friends in nature. That's my other side, and yeah, I'm not a complicated person. I like reading. I love books. I like watching movies and not everything.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, my cathedral, like my church, is nature.
Absolutely. Oh, me too. For the longest time, I almost became, before I got interested in film, was, I grew up on Discovery Channel. I almost wanted to be a marine biologist, and I think the guys who, do this Planet Earth series, I think they have the best job in the world to go film and create, movies out of nature. I think it's a amazing thing.
I think so too. And look, I grew up watching Jacques Cousteau,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Right.
And man, the music that generally was George Delure, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Beautiful composer,
Yes.
great melodist, great orchestrations. I know for sure that a lot of my fascination for Jacques Cousteau's work also had to do with the music that was under it.
Oh, absolutely.
And I didn't know then. I wasn't a musician then. I was only like 10 years old, 8 years old, and I was like, oh my God, they are now in the Amazon and they are filming the pink dolphins or whatever. But it was this music that I know, man. It was just like playing a trick on me and telling, my soul, we're gonna meet each other very soon.
And it's just talking about that. It just reminded me. It doesn't. It kind of bridges the two worlds. I don't know. I was at a screening for Rio 2, and John Powell.
Mm-hmm.
John Powell was talking about how he found this bird in the Amazon with this certain call, and he turned it
Mm-hmm.
into a theme. And I thought that
Yeah.
was amazing. I never would think of that, to do something where you take birds are nature's musicians. They have certain calls and tones and melodies, and he turned it into one of the bad guys' themes. I was like, that's so clever.
Yeah, and look, Messiaens, right? Messiaens, the French composer. I mean, he traveled the world transcribing songbirds,
Wow.
bird songs. Sorry, and he wrote amazing classical music, amazing performance music. But sometimes it's the true transcription of it, and he marries them. And I recommend to everyone to I think it's Olivier Messiaen, but Messiaen for sure,
Mm-hmm.
and the music inspired by his research on bird sounds and stuff. Man, it's unbelievable.
Wow.
John is a very sensitive musician. I always loved his music, and I'm not surprised that he did that, because I think that's the kind of person he is.
Yeah, I love John. He's such a I'm sad that he takes these long sabbatical breaks. I'm like I want more.
Yeah, well, hey man, probably very soon he will show that he has something in his sleeve, and will give it to all of us.
Yeah,
because
sure.
you're right.
Well,
The analogy is, why that bird stop singing?
exactly. Keep singing. Stop it. No, continue. Well, Heitor, thanks so much for chatting today. Oh my God, it's just always a pleasure to talk and and just chat about music and everything in life with you. So thanks again, and congratulations on the new score. And I hope the Minions is going well. I hope they're not treating you too badly. Did you, by any chance, did you do the ride at Universal
Yes,
Studios?
I did.
Yeah,
I did.
I just checked it out for the first time. It was so much fun. I got to.
Yeah, it was fun. It was fun to participate on that too. No, I am working on the Minions, and it's fun. And I'm working on some video games and real orchestra video games and the songs that I told you and many things. And yeah, I'm very happy. And man, thank you very much again for the opportunity that you give to myself and my music, so we can talk a little bit about what you bring out of me so clearly, man. The process, and you get me, man. Thank you very much. We should go and have some acai juice.
Oh yeah, absolutely, anytime.